Well, I mean, and there was a point also where Barrett and I were dancing, and we floated up into the air, and
I threw Chris up in the air, and he started dancing.
It was crazy, man.
Gave me chills.
Yeah, exactly. All those school children were like, how are they making that happen?
Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined as always by the voice of Cinemasins, Jeremy Scott.
You sound like you're from London.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
That's what you came up with.
That's
what
right.
I came up. Told you I didn't plan ahead of time.
And from Music Video Sins, Barrett Share.
Hello, world.
Hello, world.
Yeah.
Hello. Indeed. I like that. Anyway, we're going to go back to our road trip.
Road trip.
On the road again, California, here we come.
Oh, the places you'll go.
Are we there yet?
No.
Are we there yet?
No.
Are we there yet?
No.
Road trip.
One of the things I was thinking about on my way here, we're doing California today.
Yep.
Which is a massive state for this particular kind of discussion that we've been having. And we probably won't even scratch the surface. We're going to try and take extra time. You notice there's only one state instead of two today.
Right.
That's how many films are
California.
set in California. But I was thinking of how many great songs are about California. More than any other state. Again,
What immediately comes to mind?
well, California Dreamin' by the Mamas and Papas, California Girls, California Love, California by Phantom Planet, California by Tom Petty,
Wow.
Hotel
And-
California.
It took that long to get to Hotel California because that was the first one that popped in my head.
That's because you're
unfortunately.
old.
Yeah, I guess
And
so.
then the song that popped into my head was Local H's California Songs, which which basically says, I'm tired of California songs.
Interesting.
He's like, please no more California songs. And then it's like, and then it's like, and fuck New York too. But yes, this besides the obvious, where the movie is shot in a studio in California, there are a great many that use California and the cities as backdrops. And I think we're going to focus mostly on that today.
Yeah.
Not really go through all the stuff that was actually shot in California because we die.
Yeah. In fact, I think I said in my notes, at least for mine, I was mostly trying to find films where the California city or the state feels almost like a character or almost like a really important aspect of the story. So that's where I sort of focused. And that's why a movie like The Fan is not going to make my list.
Right.
Because even though it does take place in San Francisco, it could just as easily take place in Boston.
I thought it was in New York, actually.
No, it's the San Francisco Giants.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, there you go.
Yeah, Wesley Snipes, former Atlanta Brave in The Fan, is a free agent or traded to San Francisco or whatever,
And he slumps.
and he slups.
He
Hey, Bobby! Robert De Niro from the stands. Hey, Bobby! Yeah, so I think the first thing that immediately comes to my head with California are some comedies like Clueless and Fast Times at Ridgemont High, both Amy Heckerling movies.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah. Especially in Clueless, where I think the dialogue and all the locations and everything are so California.
Yeah.
It's also 90s as fuck too.
Yeah, that's true.
But you can't even imagine Clueless being anywhere else. It's got to be like a Beverly Hills high school.
Exactly. It's
thing.
sort of, well, and I think, again, because of when it came out, I think it's sort of skewering like that 90210 Melrose Place kind of crowd that, the really rich, well, California, Kardashian type people.
Right,
Yeah.
all right.
Sorry, Kardashians. No offense. I know you listen regularly.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think another one is Lady Bird is set in California, right? From this year? No, nominated. I don't think that would be called a comedy, though, even though I think there are laughs there.
It's a drama that has comedy in it.
Yeah, and that's in Sacramento, which is very cool because you don't get a lot of shit from Sacramento. If you're going to be in California, it's going to be San Diego or L.A. or San Francisco, and that's basically it. But like you said, the state is massive, and it as these, that's the capital of Sacramento, and you don't see that many stories coming from it, but it does play a role as a character in Lady Bird because she wants to get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
Right.
Isn't that interesting how the capital of California and the capital of New York
Yeah.
are like, how did they become the capital if they're like
Yeah.
not the real like where everybody wants to be and all that other times? Of course, I'm probably offending all the Sacramento people out there, but like,
And all the Albany people.
right, and all the Albany people.
Speaking of San Diego, we got the Anchorman movies there.
Yeah.
I don't know
San
that it's.
Diego.
I think you probably could have set that somewhere else and it would have been fine, but the movie goes out of its way to make San Diego kind of a part of the location
Oh, yeah.
and the story, and even, the unoffensiveness of the culture around there. And I love me some Anchorman.
Yeah,
Not
there's
so much number 2.
It's not. Oh yeah, no kidding. You're exactly right. San Diego is like considered, I think, like the most perfect place in the U.S.
Right, because it's supposed to be like 72 every day of the year there.
It's sun shining all the time, and it's idyllic. So the comedy being, kind of imprinted on there,
Right.
makes more of an impact because it stands out more.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then there are movies obviously shot in L.A. that do have L.A. as the character and everything. Heat, L.A. Confidential, La La
Yeah.
Land, all of those movies
They have to be in L.A.
They have to be, right? You could stage like a Heat in some other city in America, but it wouldn't have that kind of. What is it about? It's not big enough if it's
Yeah.
anywhere else,
There's a
unless
certain-
it's New York or something.
Well, even in New York, I think would feel too cramped for Heat. There's a certain sprawl of the big city that makes
Yeah.
Heat work,
right.
and you wouldn't get that in New York.
Especially the where they're at the shipyard, whatever the hell they are, when
Oh yeah.
Pacino is like, you know what they're looking at? They're looking at us.
Yeah.
LAPD. Smile, motherfuckers. All that type of stuff.
We've just been made.
We just been made. And so yeah, that wouldn't work as a New York thing. I mean, they try to do that occasionally in New York type of things where they're like on some dock in Brooklyn or something
Yeah.
like that. And it's like it doesn't have that, still doesn't have that spread out feel of it or anything. LA Confidential for sure has LA as a huge, like, it's such a huge backdrop that, like, the movie industry is represented in there. They've got hookers that are cut to look like movie stars. They've got the way the cops are. It's like they feel like it's a TV show, and of course the Kevin Spacey character is actually doing some sort of like consulting for this Dragnet type show or whatever. But LA Confidential, man, that's a love letter to LA, even
Yes,
though
it is.
it's a dark, seedy underbelly and everything.
Underbelly. Well, in La La Land, I don't think you obviously couldn't exist anywhere else.
Nope.
That's just got to be in Hollywood, and that's maybe one of the biggest like things that people don't like about the film is that it's maybe a little too in love with Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it wears its heart on its sleeve.
Sure.
Which works for me. I mean, that's perfectly fine. The whole Griffith Observatory stuff, which we actually went to when we were out in LA, is just so fucking magical. It's magical because there's no way it would have
And
happened.
there was a point also where Barrett and I were dancing and we floated up into the air, and
I threw Chris
I'm
up in the
telling
air
ya.
and he started
it was
dancing.
crazy, man.
Gave me chills.
Yeah, exactly. All those school children were like, "How are they making that happen?" Jeremy's like, "I don't know."
Jeremy was singing City of Stars.
Yeah,
I don't know. Watch Cinemasins.
right.
I love it though, man. Like I went back to La La Land and we had kind of maybe soured on it a little bit because I think Jeremy and I both saw it a lot, like in a short period of time. But there's just parts of that that's just it's awesome. It's magical.
Well, its opening number, I don't think even works without L.A. as a
No,
backdrop,
definitely not.
because it's a big, huge traffic snarl, and I'm sure. I mean, hell, in Nashville we have traffic snarls, but not like L.A. does. Even today, I was driving and it took me 45 minutes to get to somewhere, and I was like, "Geez, Christ, what is going on?" But like L.A., like, yeah, you could probably have a whole fucking musical and not move 1 inch, and while you're in traffic there.
Man, I was driving down here today and I saw a bunch of taillights in front of me and I was like, oh no, I wonder if there's a wreck or something. I'm driving. I shouldn't do this, but I pull out my phone, pull up my Google Maps, And I swear to God, the interstate in front of me was like black. And I was like, oh, God, I got to get off the road. So I got off the road and made my way here on the back road. I've never seen that color so dark. Anyway.
Jerry's like veering off.
I changed like 4 lanes in 5 seconds.
And sticking with LA, because I mean, yeah, after all, I mean, LA is going to be the main focus of most of these, but I like these movies about making movies too.
The
Player is a huge. I love this movie so much. I've seen it probably 30 times.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen it a bunch. The Player is great, and Hail Caesar, which has kind of gotten this weird. I don't know. It's a bit of a cult to watch, to love Hail Caesar.
I haven't heard one thing either way, really. I think
Really?
a lot of people are just like, oh,
Yeah,
all right.
I was pretty meh. I didn't hate it, didn't love it.
Really?
Yeah.
I liked it a lot.
I know you guys both liked it more than me.
Yeah, I did like it a lot, and I really don't have an explanation. It's not like one of those things where it's like, oh, come on, you gotta love this movie.
I'll tell you why. It's because it's very Coen-y.
Mhm.
It is otherwise like a straightforward kind of send up of the golden era, but like all the stuff with Clooney being turned on to communism,
Yeah.
and like Josh Brolin's just kind of like little things that contribute to his character. The way it's shot is just very Coen-y to me, and I love it, man. I love the Channing Tatum dance number.
Yeah.
What is it, like Just Us Dudes or something?
I
like
was
that?
pretty
I
bored
think,
by that.
yeah.
You were pretty bored by that?
I was.
Really?
Also, Bowfinger, if we're going to talk about
Yeah.
LA movies about making movies. And there are, again, several set pieces that movie ends at the Griffith Observatory,
Mhm.
actually,
Oh, yeah?
where they finally get caught. And thank God Eddie Murphy's character shows his thing to the Laker girls so that they're able to get that movie released.
Yep.
Anyway, I love me some Bowfinger.
Yeah. Also, if you want to go to popular entertainment, Terminator and Terminator 2.
Yeah. Terminator 2 is iconically LA.
Yes.
Because of that concrete river.
Yes, and they even in I believe it's the first Terminator, they go through like streets and stuff, like, you know, he's turned on Olympic and all that. You know, they're like very conscious about making this an LA type of movie. And yeah, Terminator 2 for sure is like a big, like, that, you know, that aqueduct scene and everything is iconic.
Yeah.
You know, and every time you go to LA, you can't go anywhere without running into one of those aqueducts.
Yeah.
And you like think of Terminator 2. Maybe Terminator 2 was shot there. I don't know. It's a lot of aqueduct, but
Such a weird use of geography. They call that the LA River.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yet it's dry 80% of the time, I guess.
It's mostly for runoff from, I think, the snow peaks nearby.
I think it's mostly for filming chase scenes.
Yeah. Like Point Break.
Yeah, in Greece.
Yeah, Greece.
Greece, they have that beautiful race in the middle of the LA River.
Even the Italian Job remake, part of their chase scene is in the LA River.
Yeah.
And that movie is pretty solidly LA as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some the San Francisco is obviously shot a ton in California too, and in fact, every time a movie's in San Francisco, they have to have a set piece on the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yep.
It is always there. Like, I don't blame you. I'd want to shoot it too, but good God, leave the Golden Gate alone once in a while.
Yeah, and then there are movies that I think are much more, you know, truly set in San Francisco, and are not just like landmark shopping with B-roll, like something like So I Married an Axe Murderer, where we not only get, you know, some of that, but we get the hilly streets and we get the local culture and we go out to Alcatraz, and that movie is all about being in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And can you imagine San Francisco in the 90s? Because you had to imagine that they would have like those giant cappuccino mugs and everything, and those little like neo beat clubs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That'd be a fun time to like be around that scene, I think.
Yeah.
You know, before all the tech bros came in there.
Yeah, and all the homeless people.
Yeah, well, I think
maybe they were there in San Francisco in the 90s too. Maybe that's part of the problem. So San Francisco has just never cared about the homeless.
It's possible.
I don't know.
And also you've got The Rock in San Francisco.
Yeah, man.
I think like you're saying, every movie has to have the Golden Gate Bridge. Every movie has to have that super bumpy road.
Mm-hmm.
Did you drive down that? It's like the hilliest or curviest road in the U.S. or something like that?
I haven't ever done that.
There's one that's the curviest, like you can't go more than like 5 miles an hour or something like that. And then there's one like the one that Nick Cage chases after Sean Connery and that's super bumpy and everything.
Yeah. Do you have the new Planet of the Apes movies are all San Francisco, and I think that's very solidly a San Francisco movie.
Oh yeah.
They do use the Golden Gate. It's always a sort of a barrier. The Golden Gate. They don't use it just as a prop. They use it as a barrier to where all the apes are and where all the humans are and everything. And the Muir Woods and all that. That's another big thing that's in there. So
we went there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Didn't see any apes.
Nope.
I think like that trilogy is really expertly sequential. Like I think I could sit down and watch all 3 of those in a row and be like wowed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because they all fit the same look. They all fit the same narrative style. I haven't gotten back and watched the first one, but I think the effects pretty much hold up. In Dawn, they certainly do.
Yeah, I haven't seen Rise in a good few years, and I'm thinking they probably will hold up pretty well. Maybe some of the stuff when Caesar's really little might look a little goofy.
Yeah. That's probably the only place where it may falter a bit.
Yeah.
But everything else where they get like just the hairs just right and all that is pretty amazing. Also, one of our favorite sneakers is in San Francisco.
One of the few movies to give love to the bridges besides just the Golden Gate, right? Because there's that whole segment where they're trying to figure out where he was taken, and they're like, well, did you go over a bridge? And he's like, yes. And then they're like, well, was the Golden Gate fogged in last night?
Yeah.
All right, scratch the Golden Gate.
Right.
And then they talk about the Bay Bridge, and what's the other one they mentioned?
San Mateo, I think.
San Mateo. Anyway, Dunbarton.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love me some sneakers. That was on the other day. I can't not watch that when it's on. And I was telling Chris, I always forget that opening. I almost never catch the first 5-10 minutes. I usually catch it somewhere along the line where the CIA guys have come to hire them.
Mm-hmm.
But I always forget he falls in the bank when they're running because the guy in front of him jumps up and just like single hops the teller. What's it called? Table or whatever. Robert Redford just face plants. It just mixes the humor with the thriller aspect so deftly that few movies have.
You break into people's places to see that if people can't break into their places, it's a living. Not a very good one.
Yeah, I love how bitchy that girl is.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm handing you this check. You don't make very much money, and I've always wondered what that check amount was for.
Yeah.
Because I bet it would still be like the kind of money that would be like, holy shit, that's a lot of money. But you think about all the gear and the time, he's got to split it with 7 people. It might not be a very good living.
Right.
Who knows?
You know what's a jarring ass moment in that movie is when Sidney Poitier he kicks the guy's ass and he's like, motherfuckers mess with me, I split your head.
Yeah.
Well,
that comes out of nowhere.
I sort of think they hinted at it. You know, all they ever do is talk about his time at the CIA, Why'd you have to leave the CIA?
Mm-hmm.
No one ever talks about why he left the CIA. And then we get this moment, and I think you can extrapolate. He probably went off on someone.
It's true.
And got honorably discharged.
It's like it just out of nowhere has this racist tent that comes out of nowhere.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, like, you too, Midnight.
Yeah,
You're
seriously.
like, what the fuck?
All bad guys have to be racist.
Yeah. What else is in San Francisco? There's there's the museums and the Fisherman's Wharf.
Well, the first thing that came to my mind is probably not qualifying for our criteria, but Inside Out is San Francisco.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
also Big Hero 6, I think, plays a lot with San Francisco as a locale, even though they make it half Tokyo, half San Francisco.
Yeah,
it's definitely something.
And there's quite a bit of good crime stuff going on in the San Francisco. Like, get the Dirty Harry movies are all in there. Zodiac.
Oh yeah,
is another one.
Basic Instinct.
Yeah.
San Francisco's a huge character in that movie.
Yeah. One we didn't talk.
Let me ask you about Basic Instinct.
Yeah.
Okay, is that a good movie?
It's a tough one to define, isn't it? Because it was made to be a titillating, like, I don't know, boner movie.
I've got a weird thing with Paul Verhoeven. I don't know if I like any of his movies.
You don't like
Total Recall? Yeah.
You don't like RoboCop?
Nah. Like, I understand.
And I know you don't like
Showgirls.
Starship Troopers.
No, like, and I've tried to watch it, ironically and in a different lens and like, parody and things like that. And it's just, I don't know.
Man.
I don't know if I get him.
Starship Troopers was on a couple weeks ago when I watched it, and I liked it even more.
Yeah, me too. Here's the thing about his movies. For the most part, they really try to both be what they appear to be on the surface and making fun of what they appear to be on the surface. They want to draw that line between realism and camp, and it just sometimes works better than others. My response to you on Basic Instinct is if you're watching it for a crime thriller, no, it's terrible.
Okay,
if you're watching it for a campy sex movie, then it's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you watch Basic Instinct, you realize 0 people in this movie are professional in their job.
That is the worst fucking part. By the way, Catherine Trammell, is that her name?
Yeah.
So when they're riding back with Michael Douglas and his partner, and she's in the back seat, and he's like, "You like messing with people's minds, don't you?" And she's like, "I have a bachelor in psychology. That's what I do." I'm like, "Fuck you, man!
A bachelor's.
You went to fucking like 4 different classes and got a major in fucking psychology, so now you can fuck with people,
Right. So,
no, you can not have that and still fuck with people.
Right.
You can be a fucking PhD and still fuck with people. That has nothing to do with this.
Exactly.
Did you see, did you see this interview 2 days ago, yesterday, where Jennifer Lawrence apparently dropped out of middle school? She never finished high school.
She was 14.
Really?
When
Has
she
no
went to
GED. Thought she would be better off teaching herself.
No, she was 14 when she moved to New York. I actually heard her on Mark Maron's WTF.
That's where she said it. Yeah.
And she moved at 14 to New York, and she auditioned for some play or something. I can't remember what it was.
She's from Kentucky, like around
She's
Louisville.
from Louisville,
right?
yeah. And 14 years old. She was
That's
in New York.
insane. Have you ever considered when she talks, like, she comes off pretty intelligent.
Yeah.
She doesn't come off like somebody who not only just didn't go to college or maybe dropped out of high school, dropped out of middle school
Yeah.
at 7th grade. The balls.
And she can fuck with people's minds too,
I barely
even
had the
without a
balls to
bachelor's.
feel
right.
sick when I was in 7th
But
grade.
yeah, think about all the stuff that happens in Basic Instinct. You have, Michael Douglas has been like doing coke and he's an alcoholic and all that. You have his girlfriend Jean Triplehorn is this cop psychologist who decides to fuck him.
Yeah.
You have the main guys who are above Michael Douglas who are all like very shady. Wayne Knight's character is deciding, I'm going to look up this girl's dress while we interrogate her, because after all, she is giving us a peek. We might as well, do it.
She's like on a stage or something like that.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
It's like a framing device for an interrogation.
So yes, I enjoy Basic Instinct because it is so super silly. It's like this is a world that just doesn't exist. I mean, maybe it does in some place, who knows? But yeah, and then they have like, there's like 6 or 7 really long sex scenes in the movie, which you will never see again in movies. That stuff basically went to straight to video type stuff after Basic Instinct and maybe Showgirls, although it was happening right after Basic Instinct. You started going to the video store, and it was always like Animal Instincts and like,
Basic pleasures.
Basic pleasures, yes. Sex movie, and it was just like, and it was always, these actresses became softcore porn stars, basically.
Hey, speaking of Michael Douglas in San Francisco, The Game takes place there. I just caught this a couple days ago. It's like the lost David Fincher movie, and I think David Fincher fans remember it and like it, but the general public, it feels like the one of his movies that doesn't ever get talked about.
So awesome.
It's a really solid.
I love
mean,
The Game,
it's
and
pretty preposterous, but if you don't care about that, it's a really fun
And
ride.
by the way, do you think that maybe possibly the creators of Game Night have sort of constructed a comedy version of this?
I actually think the creators of Game Night watched The Game and Bill Murray's The Man Who Knew Too Little back to back. And got inspired.
Yeah, there's a lot of The Game in Game Night.
So we've all seen Game Night?
No,
I have, but I haven't.
Motherfucker, Barrett. Sorry. Well, it's going to be my recommend later. A little preview for you.
But we're talking about crime thrillers and everything. One that we forgot was Chinatown for LA.
Oh, yeah.
Chinatown is LA as fuck too.
It
and
is.
very much requires the backdrop of LA because it's talking about droughts and stuff like that and redirecting the water to this one neighborhood so that this one guy can get all this money.
Guy who's fucking his daughter.
Yeah, guy's fucking his daughter. Yeah. Little girl good at math. And
by the way, my cousin said on Twitter that when I described that Sugar Mountain movie, I had him at accidental incest. Sorry, I keep distracting us. Chinatown's great, and that's one of those classics that I didn't get around to until just a handful of years ago, and I was blown away how good it is. That's how you make a movie where the villain's plan involves real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Exciting.
Yeah.
And you should take note, Superman. Superman 2, whichever one it is.
It's slow. It's a fairly slow or deliberate movie.
But yeah, I think most of the good like detective noir kind of stuff is.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Roman Polanski has this ability because Rosemary's Baby is, kind of slow.
Mm-hmm.
There's shots that just go on, like when they keep coming over to her apartment and stuff like that. Those conversations last a little bit longer than you'd think, but it all works together. I mean, they're all enjoyable.
Yeah.
He's just a terrible person, but the movies are really good.
Yeah.
I mean, just to tie up like Northern California, just outside of San Francisco is Sideways in wine country.
Yeah.
Since we talked about L.A. Confidential, we should talk about Sideways.
I just watched Sideways yesterday. If they would play L.A. Confidential every other day on one of the movie channels, I would watch it regularly.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is, they play Sideways it was on Showtime for 3 months, and now it's on Stars. It's like every other day. I'm like, yeah, it's going to win out over almost any other channel.
Yeah.
Anytime you drop into that, you can enjoy yourself.
Yeah, Sideways definitely. It's one of the rare movies where we get to see California countryside and everything as the backdrop as they go through wine country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Have you ever been through wine country, Jerry?
I have not, and I stopped drinking wine a few weeks ago.
This is not the time to go.
So this would not be a good time to go. But someday I would like to go. I think I finally got to a place with my understanding and appreciation of wine. Because early on in my wine days, I just didn't have any kind of palate. And now I barely do. Like, he put me up against like a sommelier or whatever, and he's going to kick my ass and hate me, shame me. But I think I could enjoy a wine country trip on another level now.
Mm-hmm.
And I sure think one of the reasons I love Sideways so much is sort of living vicariously through them, because you get kind of two perspectives on wine country. You get Miles's. This is a guy who goes up here all the time. He's a regular at this restaurant in wine country, and he knows all about wines and Pinot. But you also have his friend Jack, who doesn't know shit about wine. And on the way up, he asks a question, and like Miles is like, "Don't ask shit like that when we get up there. You look like an idiot."
Where is he from? Where do they live? Are they in San Francisco?
San Diego.
San Diego.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They live in San Diego. They drive up to wine country and have an adventure.
Yeah.
And one of them has lots of sex.
Yep.
Are you chewing gum?
So yeah, Paul Thomas Anderson, nearly everything except Phantom Thread.
Yeah, I was actually surprised to learn that when Phantom Thread came out, that was his first movie outside of California.
Yeah.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
Although Hard 8, I think, is a Vegas. It's mostly Vegas. And they may go somewhere else at some point in that, but people don't typically bring up Hard 8 for some reason for Paul Thomas Anderson. It's easy to think Boogie Nights is his debut. But
people treat Hard 8 like it was his EP.
Yeah,
but his first studio release was Boogie Nights.
And it's weird, like Hard 8 is really good. It's just that it's one of those sort of forgotten 90s indies that came out, but I would definitely recommend it, even though it's not a California movie. We'll get to it, I guess, when we go to Nevada, and that's another one that's going to have nothing but Vegas all over the place. But anyway, yeah, Boogie Nights. We're talking about movies about movies and everything. This is about when porn was being shot as actual films.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to there's a sort of and not ironic character with Burt Reynolds who really believes he's making art.
Yeah, he's an auteur
with this stuff.
Yep. Well, to the point where he doesn't even want to go to videotape.
Right.
Like when the industry and the finances sort of dictate it, he's almost like one of those, like Spielberg. I'm going to shoot on film. I'm not moving to digital.
No, I mean, what a weird time to be alive where the only way that you could consume pornography is to get off your ass and
go-
into a
Yes.
theater
An X-rated
with
theater.
other dudes and maybe women and just watch people fucking.
I know.
It's like it seems obviously so foreign to us now, and of course we're
Well,
old, but still.
You see it in
Not that
Taxi
old.
Driver. You see De Niro bringing Sybil Shepherd to the porn theaters. Like, I don't know anything about movies, but you know,
I like these movies.
I like these movies. I mean, this is not so bad. And like, and then the stories that come out about Deep Throat and everything, about how like there were lines around the block to
Yeah.
watch it, and there was like celebrities going in to see it and all that. And like it's a completely different time,
Yeah.
man. And but yeah, in Boogie Nights, I just love Boogie Nights so
Yeah.
much. To be able to cover this topic without feeling exploitative at all, or exploitive, and build a whole bunch of characters around this where it's I don't know, it's a masterpiece, and I don't know if it gets talked about enough in PTA's career anymore, because he's come out with all these really challenging films since then,
Right.
And I think he's known more for that than he is Boogie Nights.
I'm going to give you a peek into my past.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of what does Boogie Nights in is all the sex and nudity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that makes it a hard sell to a certain segment of even non-religious moviegoers who just aren't into that kind of thing. Like I had a friend, I tried to recommend The Nice Guys, and he got 10 minutes into it and was like, it just seemed like with all the violence and the nudity, it probably was a little too much for me. And I was like, damn, it's really violent and nudity in the first 10 minutes of Nice Guys.
Yeah.
But it isn't so much the rest of it. But anyway, so I had Boogie Nights. I had seen it. I loved it. And then at that point in my life, I owned it. I had it on VHS or DVD or something. But I was still a pretty religious guy.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, I got this mindset that I was like, one day I'm going to get married and I'm going to have kids. And even if I appreciate the art, I'm not going to want some of these movies on my shelf. So I went through and got rid of a bunch of movies that I thought I would get rid of whenever I had kids because of the content being too edgy. And Boogie Nights was one of them.
That is interesting.
I got rid of it.
Yeah.
I own it again now.
Right.
But yeah, that was a time in my life where I was like, I can appreciate the art, but I think the nudity and the violence is a little too
That's
much.
hilarious because I have a kid and I don't think about that.
But you're not. I don't think of you. I don't want to impugn you, but I don't think of you as like a super conservative religious guy right
No.
now. And that's what I was at the time.
Right.
And yeah, I drew a line, and that movie was on the far side of it.
And Paul Thomas Anderson certainly gives you enough nudity and sex in it, but it never feels like the point of the movie. And the characters involved all have their dreams and everything, and they have other things they want to do. Almost all of them do.
Yeah.
Amber Waves wants to shoot her own movies.
Yeah.
Buck wants a stereo store.
Yeah, he wants to own a stereo store. The Mark Wahlberg character, Dirk Diggler, wants to have a singing career.
Yeah, he's got the touch.
This is just a step to that. They think that if people respect that. They think people respect this. I think because even Buck, when he goes to get his loan and everything, which is the most devastating part of the movie for me.
Yeah.
There's a suicide in this movie, and that's more devastating to me. The idea that he doesn't think he's doing anything that a bank should care about when he gets a loan and everything, and technically they shouldn't.
Right.
But he seems so naive about it.
Yeah.
Like he goes in thinking there's no way that I've got everything I need here. Who cares if I do porn?
Yeah.
It's not that way or whatever. And it's just great how he constructs that whole thing.
What year did that come out?
97.
I always think, I don't know why I draw this connection, but Boogie Nights and Catch Me If You Can will always be connected to me because both of them have characters that go from nothing to having a lot of money, and they hold a party with a bunch of friends, and we get a scene walking through their new expensive apartment where they scold people about all their rich stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like, don't touch the stereo, that's not Italian, that's Italian leather. Like, both of those movies have that scene.
Yeah.
I don't know why I connect them for that reason.
Well,
but
for
I do.
me, Boogie Nights connects to Goodfellas a lot.
Oh, interesting.
Because Goodfellas has that same sort of structure where it starts off with a kid who's basically recruited into the life that he's in, And then there's these glory days, and he's like the up and coming star and all that. And then drugs sort of screw up everything.
Specifically cocaine.
So yeah, exactly. Cocaine. Yeah.
It's a hell of a drug.
Yeah, it's a hell of a drug. I think LA is more represented in Magnolia, though.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I would agree.
Definitely.
Yeah, Magnolia is just crazy dependent on the LA scene in that, and there's so much in there. Like PTA definitely knows his LA, man. And
totally.
I know he grew up that way. His dad was like, what?
I'm just thinking. Did you see that Funny or Die thing of Bradley Whitford, emotional stuntman?
No.
So they filmed this video of Bradley Whitford, or this scene of this couple fighting, and they're like, cut it right here. And then they take the male character out of there and they bring in Bradley Whitford to like in a mocap suit to actually like cry, the emotional stuntman. And that's funny and everything. But then they start like superimposing him. He's like the scene, I'm the one who knocks in Breaking Bad. Mm-hmm. Like they take Cranston away and it's actually Bradley Whitford doing the thing. And one of them is the emotional scene with Tom Cruise in Magnolia where he's at his dad's bedside. Oh my God. It's got Bradley Whitford in his hair and he's just like... He's just got these where he's battling his demons. It's so fucking great.
I can't wait to watch that. Sounds awesome.
Great.
And Lewis, I will drop kick this fucking dog if he gets anywhere near me. Magnolia not only has the TV industry is a big thing in here, but just all the different places that they're going and
John C. Reilly's Beat Cop.
Yes.
And pretty much all we see him do is pretty LA.
Yeah. So, and I just always, I seem to focus on this like entertainment industry here because it seems like, especially with the Frank T.J. Mackey character and everything, it seems like he's just a creation of this whole thing. And he goes on TV and telling people like, you can be the master of the muffin and all that. And
what is it? Love the cock, tame the cunt.
Yes, pretty much. Yes. It's and he's based off of a real guy.
Yeah.
The whole pickup artist thing. It's not the same pickup artist that had their own VH1 show, but there was like a guy that was sort of tangent to that,
right?
That Frank T.J. Mackey is based on.
Yeah, it's Will Smith in Hitch.
It's Will Smith on Hitch. Yeah.
You remember when he told Kevin James to love the cock and tame the cunt?
Yeah, I do remember that,
and not do the Q-tip dance.
Right. But yeah, just everything is so. I think people don't like Magnolia because of the weird coincidences that he's really interested in going after all this. Like this person just happens to be the son of this person, and this person's going through the same things that this person is. And
do you remember why Kevin Smith hates Magnolia so much or doesn't like it? I don't think he
said something about it being just overindulgent. And you could see that. I mean, Magnolia is a really long movie, and it's trying to prove some point about coincidences, I think, essentially. I mean, it's a bunch of like family coincidences and stuff like that. And plus it has that frog scene in it, which is what a lot of you're either going to like that or you're going to get lost there. But I do think it's interesting, all the parallels. You have the kid who's on the game show who is basically the younger version of Quiz Kid Donnie Smith, the William H. Macy character. You see how much he's been messed up by his life and everything, and how his parents stole his money and all this other type of stuff. And then you have the guy who's hosting the game show. He's been a bad father. He's been the worst father.
Right.
He abused her, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. There's a great scene with Melinda Dillon at the end where he's like, you just can't say what you did. And then his character is somewhat related to the Frank Partridge character, the Jason Robards, who I believe he may have been on his actual deathbed during that movie. He didn't die too long after this movie was shot. But the Robards character is another person he's been a bad father to his son, Frank T.J. Mackey, and everything. And all these characters just connect in this weird way.
I'm a bad father.
And Philip Seymour Hoffman is essentially kind of like an offspring taking care of his patient.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And then another big California, There Will Be Blood.
Mm-hmm.
That's another one that just.
Well, he's moving out in There Will Be Blood, The Master, and he moves back in Inherent Vice.
Mm-hmm.
But he moves out of L.A. and explores different parts of California, and what he does in There Will Be Blood is kind of canvas the state and see like all the different topography. Daniel Plainview and his brother, they go up north and everything, and they explore, all the little towns and villages outside of it. I love the scenery in this movie. I love everything about this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. But we don't get to see the oil rush or whatever. We don't get to see that very much in movies, and he does it so well.
Yep.
But I love how he shoots this. This is just a beautiful movie.
Yeah, and it's crazy. He goes from, not so much in Punch Drunk Love, but these huge ensemble casts to focusing literally on one character.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of paring that down, and having maybe a little bit of a counterpart with Paul Dano. But yeah, awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so what else do we want on California? What else do we want to talk about?
The only other big one that I would bring up is The Social Network.
Yeah.
Because that kind of telegraphs the beginning of the techno breakthrough, especially integrating the Napster character with Justin Timberlake. Let's see, this was 2010. And it's really maybe around the high watermark of all that tech stuff that's happening out there. And it really shows a different view of the Bay Area than we got in, like, So I Married an Axe Murderer and stuff like that,
Yeah. It should be noted also that that two of the shittiest movies ever made were made in San Francisco or around that area.
Oh.
And that is Birdemic and The Room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure they wear that proudly in San Francisco. Or at least they're the backdrop. I'm trying to remember. Does he go to L.A. to shoot San Francisco, or does he go to San Francisco? He goes.
Are you talking about the room?
In The Room.
Yeah, he goes to L.A. and then they're shooting San Francisco.
They're shooting it as San Francisco.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would bring up Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a very San Francisco
It
movie.
is a very San Francisco movie, and one thing that is consistent across almost all of Trek is that the Federation's headquarters is in San Francisco. So you get a little San Francisco at the beginning of Wrath of Khan when they're at Kirk's apartment, and you could see the Golden Gate out the back. But in this movie, they actually go back in time, and of course they go back to San Francisco where the headquarters would be, and park their cloaked bird of prey in a park, and then they go to an actual San Francisco Marine place where they're trying to recruit whales. We see them at a San Francisco naval base trying to get on the USS Enterprise, an aircraft carrier. So I think the city is pretty prominently.
They get on a city bus.
They do, yeah. And Vulcan nerve pinch a guy who's bothering them.
That's
right. Yeah. The Big Lebowski obviously is another big California movie, and that's a very specific type of character I think that they're talking about. The California slacker, this weed smoking, doesn't pay his rent, long-haired hippie dude who just bowls all the time.
I'm talking about the dude.
Yeah. And it's not like overtly California, but it seems like it needs to have that backdrop.
Oh, I think of very much like Southern California when I watch them, especially when they go out. And
they go to Malibu and all that. Yeah. Stay out of Malibu, Lebowski. Stay out of my. I want you to stay out of my beach community. There's Beverly Hills Cop, obviously, and now Beverly Hills Cop it's got all these iconic images of just the woman walking down the street with her dog and wearing those tight white pants and everything.
Yep.
And those movies are great. I mean, except for 3's not very good, but
yeah.
But the other two are at least decent 80s vehicles.
Don't forget about Volcano.
Oh yeah.
Which is a movie that is definitely set in LA and feels very LA because there are a lot of landmark shots, but I didn't realize until I went to LA and Chris and I rented a car and we did some driving around these streets, how many goddamn streets this movie name checks.
Yeah.
Like La Cienega and all of these streets that you see when you're driving through the main heart of LA and northern LA. So Volcano counts. It's a terrible ass movie though.
And not to mention they make this ham-handed racial comment by the end.
Right at the end, man. That's it.
Yeah.
They're all the same.
Right.
God
The
damn.
volcano that fixed racism.
That's right. by black-facing the white
Yes.
people.
Yes. There you go. Oh my God! What was the better movie, Volcano or Dante's Peak?
Dante's Peak.
Ooh, I would say Volcano.
I would say Volcano too.
I mean, we're talking F and F plus. Doesn't really matter. It's like asking me which. Never mind.
Oh my God, Dante's Peak sucked, man.
They both sucked.
Mm-hmm.
That moment when the grandmother gets out of the boat and pulls him in this like battery acid water.
Yeah.
And I only saw Dante's Peak once. I only saw Volcano more than once because we sinned it. So
Yeah.
I honestly just said a name.
There's also Boys in the Hood.
Yeah.
And Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah.
They both have to be.
Mm-hmm.
Training Day is in similar.
Yeah.
Has to be in LA.
Yeah. Boys in the Hood. I love that movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's really. I mean, I don't know if it gets talked about much anymore, though.
I'll tell you what, wardrobe and hairstyles.
Oh, yeah.
Dated
No
as
kidding.
fuck.
No kidding.
90s as fuck.
Take a look at Ice Cube in that one, man.
Oh, man.
There it is. But Boys in the Hood was, I guess, it was really groundbreaking for 1991 to come out with a movie. Well, and it wasn't just, let's see what gang life is in LA. They were showing that innocent people are affected in these type of things and everything, and how, and there's a great scene with Lawrence Fishburne talking about like look, everywhere you look, there's the down the street here, there's the liquor store, and then there's the weapon store right next to it and everything, and he's like, there's only one reason for this. They want us to kill each other and all this other type of stuff.
And that's why I don't have much tolerance, or haven't in most of my life, when somebody wants to talk to me about violence in the real world in the U.S. and quote statistics about how many black men are in prison or how many black men commit crimes versus white men. And I'm just like, okay, well, if you can't see that it's more about poverty and location and gentrification and all this stuff, then, I can't have conversations with you.
Yeah. But and then speaking of Ice Cube, Straight Outta Compton.
Yep.
Which, who knew that we would get to that point where we would look at this group in a historical fashion, I never thought that would get to that point, but man, what an interesting story.
Yeah, because they symbolized youth and rebellion and stuff like that, and it's the same thing with like I saw Guns N' Roses late last year, and like they're geriatric at this point, but they were it's the Appetite for Destruction. They were just like the kick-assiest band I've ever seen, But Straight Outta Compton is like one of those rare biopics that really works on every level probably because it's got multiple characters that they're focusing on.
You know what? It probably is more my age than anything that NWA gets a movie treatment, and I'm like, no, they're not nearly old enough to be given this biopic, treatment and everything. And then you realize it was like 28 years ago.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's like, just think about like in the 90s, 28 years ago, like if you're 1995, 28 years ago was in 1967.
Yeah.
So like that felt like it was time to, do a, whatever, a biopic on whatever band was popular around the time. But like, yeah, NWA getting its own movie. I was like, oh, really? They're not that old, are they? Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. These days,
Yeah.
it's like everybody got something to say, but nothing comes out when they move their lips. Just gibberish. You forgot about Dre.
So you're referencing the one non-NWA song that you could.
Well, we forgot about Dre.
Yeah.
Because it was a long time ago. I was trying to reference something more literal than an actual. I mean, Dre's on that track.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yep.
Step off.
That's right.
Step off.
That's right.
Speed came to mind.
Oh, yes. Another one.
It's a super LA movie.
Yeah.
I don't think it had to be. It had to be. One of the things that makes it work so well in LA is that LA has all these freeways and this expansive highway system that, a tight city like New York, you couldn't have that story.
Yeah.
You could probably set it in like Houston.
Yeah.
Or like Atlanta or what have you. But it is a very distinctly LA movie, particularly because of that freeway jump and a lot of the skyline setup shots and establishing shots.
Yeah, man, do I ever love me some Speed. I think that it's a movie that do people talk about Speed anymore?
No.
It just feels
Just
like
the lines, the catchphrases.
Well, yeah, I mean, cons.
I think it was almost as important to the action movie genre as Die Hard was. I think it was a huge milestone.
Yeah, when it came out, it was 1994 when it came out. It was a decent hit, and I feel like it had enough, impact that you even had a Simpsons joke about it and everything. But it just never, for whatever. Man, you guys, if you haven't seen Speed, that's a really well constructed action movie.
And a Seinfeld joke.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Injected in two of the greatest sitcoms of all time.
That's right. When Jan de Bont did this one, I thought he was going to be a big director.
Yeah.
Like in some ways he was, but not for the reasons I thought he would be. Because then he did Speed 2, and then he did The Haunting, and he also did Tomb Raider Cradle of Life.
Oh.
And,
There
and
you
he's
go.
probably done a whole hit list of other movies that I'm like, oh, that was not a good, but yeah, Speed I think is very, very LA movie. It definitely needs that backdrop. Bulworth is another one. We've talked about it. We talked about it briefly, I think, during our election show. But another really interesting movie, Warren Beatty. I think I talked about this before. He's this candidate who's decided to tell the truth about things, and he's obviously he's like a 60-year-old white dude who's rapping through a good deal of it.
Yep.
But
and those are cringy.
Yeah, they're very cringy, and I don't think they're meant to be good in any way.
I just it literally makes me wince.
Oh yeah, for sure. But he goes in and he's suicidal, so he's like going around like he's like, I don't give a fuck anymore, essentially. And he's just like, I'm going to tell you how it is and all that. And that's what we were getting a lot of during the Trump-Clinton election and everything, was that a lot of people like Trump because he tells it like it is and all this other type of stuff. Although in this one, he really is telling it like it is. It's not, it's he's telling the hidden truths behind a lot of things.
Both parties are upset with him. Yeah.
Right. But I think that's another really interesting LA type of movie. Anything else?
Orgy of the Dead.
Nice.
Okay, I don't even know that
guy
one.
that made the list is definitely going to get out the weirdest name on the list.
It's an Ed Wood written movie, and it's
about skeletons
I have seen
fucking.
It's fucked up. The only other thing, I caught The Mask of Zorro recently.
Yeah,
and I think that's a forgotten movie. That's a really fun movie.
Yeah.
Takes place in early Californian days where the gold rush and all that stuff. There was corrupt politicians and things like that.
Yeah.
And then you had to have this, this symbol, this Zorro symbol come in. And one of Antonio Banderas's best movies, I think. Catherine Zeta-Jones was one of her first movies.
Yeah, it was at least one of her first American movies.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing her in the trailer going, whoa.
Oh my goodness.
Holy
she is
crap.
beautiful in this movie. And it's it's a well put together movie. And, Anthony Hopkins is very charismatic in it. And
starting his long career of being the fatherly training type of guy that he's been in like 100 of them since.
Yeah.
We could obviously go on and on. Independence Day.
Pulp Fiction.
Easy A.
Yeah, Easy A.
Yeah. Normally like 3 movies that would take up like 30 minutes of discussion.
I'm just saying.
This is like Encino Man. There's Bill and even though Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was shot in Arizona, it's a California movie, California set movie anyway.
Point Break, isn't that California?
Point Break, yeah. I mean, something as big as E.T. was an L.A. movie. It has one iconic shot of L.A. I don't think it's not really, you don't really read that as California other than that one big shot of LA at the beginning of the movie.
I guess. I don't know.
But the neighborhoods that are getting built, that seems very like.
Oh. Especially when they're riding through and like going down the hills and everything. There's like those little steps basically.
Yeah, which also means Poltergeist was shot in California because both of those movies were going on at the same time.
A lot of the early David Ayer stuff. I know I mentioned Training Day, but like. End of Watch, and then the one with Keanu Reeves and the one with Christian Bale. I can never remember the Harsh Times, and but he's obviously an L.A. guy like P.T. Anderson.
Yeah,
because I think even Bright is set in L.A.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we could go on for a long time here, and I think we got the major ones. I'm sure there's like 10 major ones we missed, but I mean, we're trying to focus it a little bit more on.
You guys didn't say angels in the outfield.
Yeah, or the Naked Gun. I guess it's got to be. It's got to be more. I don't know. It's got to be more of a backdrop than just we just shot it there or whatever. It's got to have some sort of L.A. California feel to it, and we could go on for another hour and come up with stuff that probably fits that description, but that's just the way that state is. So, we ready to go into a rant now?
Let's do it.
I guess so.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
I'm as mad as hell!
You've never seen me very upset.
Lord Jesus! Lord Jesus!
Am I the only one with a rant?
No, Chris has a rant. Chris has one for all the categories. And there was a time where we thought the state of California would take so much time, we may not have time for the rant, news, recommend, and warn. I can come up with something for all those categories. And I think time-wise, it's probably looking like we do have time for that.
Okay.
Yeah, so we probably have time for that and then a question or two.
Sure.
All right. So somebody besides me start, and I'll come up with a rant.
I don't have much of a rant, but it is important, and I know we rant a lot about movie theaters here because movie theaters do have things that they should improve, things that they probably never will improve. But I went to 2 movies in the past week. Went to Annihilation and Game Night, where speakers are blown in the auditorium.
That's the worst.
It is the worst. Now, you have some leeway in this because it does require a certain decibel level to hit those things and have the. One thing that was really frustrating talking to your technician about a blown speaker is that when they would do their tests oftentimes would not hit the part of the decibel level that would cause the rattling that you would hear from a blown speaker. And so the technician we had, she would be like, okay, well, I'll have to run something through there that I can hear, like a trailer or something, so I can hear like the thing. And usually, yeah, especially if it's behind the screen, she would go in and change these speakers, and she really risked her life doing that stuff. It's unbelievable. I would come in sometimes in the morning and I would see her, like I would see lights on in this one auditorium. I'd go in there and she had like somehow maneuvered her way, and it's not easy to get to. They're on top of these like wooden blocks a lot of times. They may have built them better since the Hollywood 27, but they'd be on these big speakers would be on top of these like wooden blocks, and there's not a ladder up to them. It's just they're just suspended in midair essentially, and they're heavy. And so like she would get up on a ladder, and then she'd have to kind of like maneuver her way onto this platform.
Oh shit!
And also, because they're heavy, like you have to, they're like, think they're tied to something so that they don't break through the screen.
Where they've got that little catch on the back of
it. Yeah. So like once you loosen it, she would have to like hold on to it on this tiny platform. And be like, then change out the little thing inside of it that needs to be changed. One though, man, I went to my old Hollywood 27 theater the other day, went into an auditorium 3 to watch Annihilation, and the same left surround speaker that I had been talking about for years still is blown.
What?
It has to have been running on 10 years now. That speaker's been blown.
So you don't think it's been replaced and then the problem happened again?
No.
Oh my God.
No. It's the same one. It's the same exact one. It's weird to me, 5 years removed from being at that movie theater, and plus so many years that it was going on while I was in there, that thing's still not fixed. When I went in there, I was like, man, this sounds pretty good. And I was confusing it with another auditorium that used to always have bad sound for me, and I couldn't ever put my finger on why it was. But this one was really good, except for that left surround speaker. Luckily, surround speakers don't get hit very often, so you don't hear it all the way through. But anytime there's like that low rumbling of some sort that's going, thunder, lightning, that type of thing, you're going to hear that.
Lightning and the thunder.
Yeah, that's right. You're going to hear that.
Oh, that sucks because there's a lot of like low tones in that movie too, and especially at the end.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And so like, So that game night, it was mainly during the trailers, but it was a speaker behind the screen. It was like the right front that was doing it and whatever. Always distracting to me. It's got that when something doesn't register in the normal soundtrack that they've intended you to hear, and it's like it's building up to something that it's building up to something, and then it goes up to that high point and everything. It's so annoying, and I know it's especially now it's going to be tough for theaters to fix this stuff because there's not as many people checking auditoriums anymore. That there are people checking the auditoriums, which I could go on a rant on that too.
Yeah.
There are people checking the auditoriums, but they're never in there during time.
They've never once caught me with my dick out.
Right, exactly. And I'm like, look, guys, I'm giving you free reign to kick me out.
They're not doing their job.
And yeah.
Can I tell you about my perfect theater experience, though?
Go for it.
I had the total opposite, I guess, of your experience for Annihilation.
Mm-hmm.
So at the brand new theater that's next to me, we had one of those pre-selected seats in the auditorium. And I was going with my wife. We were going to have a date night, and that fell through. But anyway, so I booked 2 seats. They're in the very back of the auditorium, a smallish auditorium, though. So, certainly not very far away from the screen. In the back left, and they're separate from everything else. It's on a whole. Not only is it separate from the row in front, there's a little alcove where you can have projection access, like from the theater, separating the left side from the right side. So I was on a complete island.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now, it was going to be nice. I could have made out with my wife if I wanted to.
Yeah.
It was going to be nice having her there, too, because obviously it was the big, reclining seats and all that stuff. But she wasn't there. So I literally had this 2-seat thing all to myself.
Nice.
It was glorious.
Take your pants off.
And there was nobody behind me, so I could stretch if I wanted to. I could check my phone. I didn't check my phone, but I could have checked my phone if I wanted to. And it was so far removed. They've got those little dividers and everything from the rows. So far removed, I could have literally been in that theater by myself for all I knew. It was unbelievable.
That's
great.
Hey, Hollywood 27 used to have 15, 16, and 17 used to have those little areas that that were basically secluded from everybody else. There was one auditorium where you could potentially be sharing that whole back step with I guess another group of people or whatever, but there were a couple spots where you could just be by yourself if you wanted to because they were just so out of the way and everything. Checking the phone, by the way, God, it's just out of control, man. People checking their phones out of control.
Is it really? I haven't really noticed it, but I've been going to those theaters that have those dividers and everything.
I think it's fun. Well, and I was watching game night, and it's got, I don't know, no, I didn't have a divider, but the person right in front of me, I could see the light coming through the chairs.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that they thought they were being discreet and everything, but sorry.
Yeah.
But I understand the urge to look at your phone. I do a lot because there's always it seems like 50 emails come in while I'm in a movie. Yeah. Like I could sit at my house for 8 hours and nothing happens. And then I go to a movie. Suddenly everybody wants to do stuff. But I don't know what we're doing about the sound in theaters anymore because I think that's potentially the biggest thing that has been lost in the digital age is that there's not enough people screening movies. There's not enough people going in to check the sound when it's on and everything. There's not enough people writing down, that speaker's blown. Let's replace it. And of course, even if you do say let's replace it, all of these companies are just tight asses about a lot of things. So,
yes, they are.
So they don't like changing anything out as long as nobody's complaining about it and you're not having to send out refunds every single time. They're fine with you having that blown speaker sometimes. So anyway, not much of a rant, but it's something that I think is getting on the bad side.
No, you're good. Was that your rant? Was it a positive rant?
No.
Or do you have another rant?
I've got a newsy rant, like a hybrid.
Like the 1920s kid newspaper guy, newsy rant?
Newsy. All right, so Peter Sarsgaard and Jeff Daniels did an interview recently.
Because they are in a movie together, right?
NBC, yeah. And maybe this Looming Tower thing that Jeff Daniels is doing. And of course, both of them have been in Woody Allen films, separate ones. Jeff Daniels was in Purple Rose of Cairo, and Peter Sarsgaard was in Blue Jasmine, I think. And so they were both asked about, all the shit that's coming out and everything. And Peter Sarsgaard said, I would not be in another Woody Allen movie. Now, this follows a ton of people saying that they wouldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Greta Gerwig, Timothy Chalamet, I think Kate Winslet maybe too. And then Jeff Daniels said, "No, I probably would. If he called, I'd be into it." And even Peter Sarsgaard, after saying that he wouldn't do this, goes on to extol Woody Allen as the genius that he's been known as, and that he still watches his movies all the time. He still can't wait to see what's coming up next and things like that. And it got a little bit of, response as is, expected in this environment. But it brought up an interesting question to me. Is Woody Allen ever going to make another film that's widely accepted? Or is this stained him enough to where...
Stained him enough.
Everything, he's no spring chicken. He doesn't have that many movies left in him. Is it ever going to be a successful movie? Again, now I'll follow that up because I just watched The Curse of the Jade Scorpion was on not too long ago.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It is terrible. But in that movie, and you see little signs of it. We talked about the stuff in Manhattan. In that movie, Elizabeth Berkley is in that movie, and he's like, Woody Allen's character is like, "Oh, you're going home?" She's like, "Oh, I feel sick." And he's like, "Well, you need somebody to rub Vicks on your chest," and that kind of thing. And it's like, all these little tiny creepy things you're starting to notice when you watch his movies now.
Well, this is a bigger discussion. I mean, I think he's probably rich enough. He can make as many movies as he wants, get them released independently. Probably enough of Hollywood will work with him. Maybe the movies would be good or bad. I think the days of him getting studio funding and wide release and marketing are done. And I think the days of his film doing good at the box office are done.
Well, I'm not sure how long he's been doing that anyway. In the past 20, 30 years or so.
How many have done box office?
Yeah, he's always been kind of independent. And especially since the Soon Yi thing happened, he even after that he needed to start finding anybody who would finally come out with his movies.
And was it at Miramax for a while?
It was New Line or Fine Line, one of those that finally came out with.
But weren't they owned by Miramax?
No.
Sony Classic Pictures did Blues Jasmine and Midnight in Paris.
I thought Miramax did Mighty Aphrodite because one of the stories I read was Mira Sorvino being told by him,
he might have had
I made you a star.
He might have had a Miramax in the middle of all that. Like I think what started.
Yeah, that's Miramax.
What started with the Miramax, it was right after, because I read this book from it's Mike Medavoy, used to be a studio head, and and Woody Allen used to do a lot of stuff with United Artists and stuff like that. United Artists was one of the companies Medavoy was a studio head for. And then when United Artists broke down, they had some other studio that they started or whatever. But yeah, I think in that middle 90s period you're talking about is when he did Miramax.
Okay.
And then after Miramax, it's been, I guess it's a hodgepodge,
Sounds
like
it.
Sony Pictures Classics and stuff like that. But yeah, I think the thing is that Woody Allen has never been a huge box office draw, at least for the last 40 years, maybe. And, or 30 years at least. And he can probably continue making whatever he wants to for a cheap amount of money. And, it makes whatever it always makes. It's not like he's damaging that much.
Well, better question or more interesting question would be, will the Academy ever nominate him again?
Nominate him? Probably not, because he hasn't even been nominated very recently, right? I wonder about that, because if you have something like Blue Jasmine with a dynamite performance by Kate Blanchett, is it fair to not recognize her because of his movie?
Oh, I'm not trying to answer any of these questions.
No, yeah,
I'm Alex Garland here in this debate. I'm just throwing them out because it's gotten very murky. I was talking about this with my brother about because we started out with whether you I think it's dismissive to call it like this Me Too thing or what have you, but in this new era of women feeling empowered to speak out against people that have allegedly harassed or abused them, Kevin Spacey, Weinstein, there are some that feel black and white. And then there are some, Aziz Ansari, James Franco, that feel murky. And it seems like both of those guys are going to be allowed to continue by Hollywood to continue to work. And then you've got Woody Allen, where the allegations are much more specific, but not much more provable. And unlike Weinstein, who has like 90 accusers, we really just have the one.
Right.
And it's murky. And I don't want to be the guy to choose. That being said, I'm probably just creeped out enough by the things I've heard and influenced enough by all the prominent stars saying they're not going to work with him anymore. And I was never a huge Woody Allen guy anyway. I'm not going to lose any fun in my life if I just stop watching the movies he makes from here on out.
Yeah. He doesn't have, I mean, it's what you're saying. I think that's what most people are. The last time he was nominated was for Blue Jasmine. It was a screenplay. So that was 2013. So that's fairly recent.
I didn't realize he was nominated for writing that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
He's probably nominated for Midnight in Paris, too.
He was writing and directing for Midnight in Paris. But so, yeah, he's shown the capability of making stuff that a lot of people, or at least more than normal amount of people, will like and everything. But he's just at the point in his career there where it really doesn't matter. I don't know if it's going to matter.
Yeah.
I think he's going to make exactly the same amount of money as he always does on all of his movies. He just may not get as big a stars as he used to.
Yeah.
He might have to find some people who are like hungry and
maybe one of those people in one of those Coke films at the start of the movie.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so.
Wasn't he supposed to release something like Wonder Wheel? The last.
I love that song.
You're my Wonder Wheel. I think he did. Yeah, I don't think it really. I mean, you could see the New York Times review is Woody Allen's Wonder Wheel is one of his more unfortunate contributions to cinema. So
there you go.
I guess maybe it's just a bad movie, but it came out at a bad time, too.
Certainly. You want to hear my rant?
Yeah.
All right. So in all of this sequelitis, rebootitis, remake-itis that has gotten worse than ever, there's no greater offender than Disney with this whole, we're going to literally live-action remake every animated classic in our library. I think there are maybe 2 that aren't currently in production on some level. If you thought they were done there, you were wrong. Disney is about to launch their own streaming service in the next year or 2 to compete with the likes of Netflix and Hulu. One of the things they're going to do that will be a good way to draw customers is make Marvel and Star Wars movies exclusive to this Disney streaming service.
Oh, yeah.
So at some point in time, you won't be able to watch Iron Man or the Avengers on Netflix or Amazon or Hulu. Only be able to get it at DisneyHole.com or whatever the fuck they call it. Here are the shows they're prepping for this, the TV series they're prepping for this fucking, I'm already angry. They're going to reboot the Muppets show. High School Musical show. Monsters, Inc. show. Mighty Ducks show. Parent Trap show. Father of the Bride show. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids show.
How are they going to do a Father of the Bride show?
I don't know, but are they going to do any original shows?
It's going to be one of those like she's perpetually, like she has a 5-year engagement or something.
I mean, what the fuck?
I don't know. I'm kind of on board with the Muppet Show reboot, but
Killing me, Smalls.
No, if that's literally the entirety of their content is just the reboots, or a big majority is, then yeah, fuck that, man.
And you know what? Honestly, I'm going to get real for a second. I don't even blame Disney anymore. I blame you, America. I blame my wife. Because the other day I walked in the front room, she was on Netflix, she was watching Fuller House.
Oh, no.
And I said, babe, you are part of the problem.
Another great San Francisco.
Well,
Yeah,
another
there you
San
go.
Francisco. And she said, it's not good. I know it's not good. It makes me chuckle. Reminds me of the old show that I used to love. And you know what? That's pretty much why we're getting all these remakes and reboots. Because people in America, as a whole, keep watching them. And until we stop, it's not going to stop.
That's true.
In fact, in 30 years, they might be rebooting all of this shit again.
I was thinking that you were going to tell us that they're remaking Beauty and the Beast again.
As an animation.
Yeah, they're going to do an animated one this time.
That wouldn't surprise me. That could be an Onion headline or reality.
Yeah, they could make it, computer animation this time. It's different because it's computer animation.
Claymation will bring to life the story adored by millions.
Yes.
Now it's time for news.
News on the mark.
Now it's time for news. I already did kind of my newsy rant.
Well, I'll go next because it's just on the top of my head and I just read it this morning. But apparently it's official that Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt are going to star in Tarantino's new film, which is set during the Manson stuff. But apparently it's not going to focus on that so much as it is what L.A. was like, what Hollywood was like.
Oh, really? It's not,
yeah. In fact, Leo's playing a movie star, and Brad Pitt's playing his stuntman, and they're both kind of down on their luck, I guess.
Is he the emotional stuntman?
I don't know.
He's it's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is what they're calling it.
And I guess I'm just curious. What does that make you more or less interested? I mean, obviously, it's
I'm fucking in.
It's two of the biggest A-list stars you can get.
Yeah.
But like I said before on a previous podcast very recently, I'm in a new place with Tarantino after the stuff that came out in the last few weeks about him, and I'm not putting him in the same place as Harvey Weinstein because he hasn't been accused of that same kind. He hasn't been accused of anything sexual to my knowledge. But I'm pretty disgusted with the behavior that seems factual at this point, and I don't know if I want to go and support this. That being said, I haven't seen his last 3 movies in the theater. I've caught them on home video.
Mm-hmm.
Probably just, I'll watch this when we send it, I guess. But it didn't do anything, even those two, didn't do anything to motivate me to want to see this anymore. And I thought that was interesting because they're 2 of my favorite actors. They're 2 of the biggest stars in the world. And 3 weeks ago, this news probably would have had me doing cartwheels.
Oh, yeah. I'm in every part of this. Like the content, the Tarantino factor, the DiCaprio and the Pitt. I'll be there like day one.
I mean, he's going back to a time period that is when all of these movies that influenced and inspired him came out.
Yeah.
And so that could be a very interesting... I will try my best to analyze the film on its own merit, but I just find it really hard to be excited about it at this point.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's he hasn't, like you said. I don't think it has anything to like Quentin Tarantino is going to survive the Uma Thurman thing because it's not the sexual harassment or anything.
It's
like
almost his response to all that. Not the act itself.
That's where that made
it.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah, exactly. So Black Panther has already passed Wonder Woman.
Crazy.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
In box office.
That's wild, man.
It is currently slated to, if it continues along the track that it's on, that it might be the #1 MCU movie of all time. It's definitely going to hit the top 10.
Wow.
Of all time. But it is currently beating where the Avengers was at the same point.
That's nuts. And it's not like Wonder Woman was a middling blockbuster. Wonder Woman made a shit ton of money.
And it was right in the middle of summer, too.
Yeah,
this is fucking February.
In 12 days, this motherfucker hit that number.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's made $421 million here in North America. And it is currently at $756 million for the worldwide total.
Although I did see a headline, I didn't read the article, but I did see a headline for an editorial yesterday that was accusing Black Panther of cultural appropriation of all the real African tribes that it quote unquote borrowed.
Oh,
from.
really?
And I was like, have we reached a point where you can basically accuse anybody of cultural appropriation?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have. Yes.
Yeah, but I find that amazing. Like, I could see this movie. I could see it making a lot of money, but I did not expect it to be like on the level of an Avengers or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like because the Avengers was something that so many comic book fans were waiting for and had been teased with for years, and it finally came out, and then of course it exploded when it came out. This movie is its own. It's just one character. I mean, it's a lot of characters, but it's one character at the forefront.
Yeah, it's just super well done. And I think I was talking to, I was at a birthday party with some family of mine that are African American. They were talking about like how they were getting them and all their friends and their families and everything out to the theater to see this because it was important to the community.
Right.
And I don't know if that same demographic, Aunt Phyllis or whoever, my grandmother, that's going to be motivated to go out to see the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
It's because of how this movie works in this environment that maybe is motivating new ticket purchasers and probably people to go see it. The guy that wants to see it every day until he dies.
Yeah.
The last thing I should do is speak like for African American people, but I think this film's box office success suggests that a film like this, with so many of the cast African American and the director is black, is overdue.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's pretty much. I think there is a sort of a mandate going on with this movie.
Yeah.
Because I think if it were just any random regular new character, you'd have it's Ant-Man again. It's making maybe 200 or 300 million, but this is not a random character. Right. This is something that people are like, I want to give money to this and show my support for it.
Yeah.
If it beats the Avengers, it'll be the 5th highest grossing film of all time. Of course, we are not, factoring in inflation and all that, but still, that's an amazing achievement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got to recommend?
Totes Amazeballs.
They're great.
It won the Academy Award.
Oh, for what?
For best movie ever made.
I've been watching a lot of old movies like Mission Impossible 2 and shit.
Well, I'll make mine recommend doubly long then.
All right.
In the last 2 weeks, I've seen 3 excellent films: Black Panther, Annihilation, and Game Night.
Yeah.
And the one I can't get out of my head, and the one I'm going to see next, again, is Game Night. Now, you haven't seen it.
No, this is really good from what I hear, right?
Unless Chris is going to go all Annihilation on me and be the odd guy out. I have yet to talk to anybody I know that has seen it that didn't love it. Even a couple of my Twitter friends that were skeptical, who only went because I said, please go, it's really good, have come back and said, it's really good. I know Jonathan saw it and loved it. My brother and I laughed our asses off. What did you think, real quick?
I did not love it.
But you liked it?
I did.
Okay. Where would you put it? Like, not as good as, like, you wouldn't put it up there with, like, the Tropic Thunders of the world?
No. I mean, it's definitely got good, funny moments. I'm always on board with these concept comedies like this. I do think it's a fun movie and everything, and I think Jesse Plemons pretty much steals it.
He does.
He's on a roll, man.
He really is. I mean, Jason Bateman is just, I can't not watch his, I mean, he's so good in everything he's in, and he's got the same sort of mannerisms to his comedy timing, but it just is in that right zone every time. He does that thing with his head where he's like, he'll like move it along, and he just kind of, he's always like in this sort of cadence that he does and everything, and I love it. I'm a little down on how this movie plays out as it goes along. Okay. Like, I feel like I don't want to spoil it.
Sure.
But I do feel like if it could have stayed a little bit more on track with the game that's going on in it, rather than going off the rails and saying, well, this is actually the thing. And this is so like, if it could have stayed within that, I would have been a little bit more on board with it. But no, it's a fun movie.
Okay. So as long as you didn't like hate it, as long as it's not like Father's Day to you.
No. That's a good one.
I'm giving you a 2 thumbs up, Jeremy, recommend on Game Night. I'm going to give you a few reasons why, because you just heard from somebody who didn't really enjoy it as much as me, and it still sounded like he liked enough of it. And I don't think you're going to find too many people that watch it and walk out thinking it is like Father's Day, where it's just simply not funny.
Yeah.
Plemons steals the movie, and he may be stealthily one of our best up-and-coming actors. Because between Friday Night Lights and Breaking Bad, we've seen the drama and the fucking creepy.
Yeah.
And between a Fargo, we got a little drama and comedy there, and a little affected personality, accent, northern, wherever the fuck.
And not to mention the Black Mirror episode that everybody considers the best one.
Oh my God, it's so good.
And then in this movie, he steals it without really even breaking a smile.
Yeah.
Like, he steals it by playing his character 100% straight. And if you took him out of this movie, there are 2 or 3 performances that I think I would say steal the movie. Jason Bateman is great. Mm-hmm. My brother and I probably had 3 conversations this weekend about how much we love Jason Bateman and how even in a shitty movie like Office Christmas Party, he's still great. But Rachel McAdams, and this is not her first time doing comedy, but she's great in this.
I love her in this.
Super charming and bubbly, goofy. And another thing I love is that at least with the main characters, those 2 who are married, this is not a comedy that needs to give them like cliche marital trouble.
Right.
They're not. I mean, I guess they're trying to decide if they want to have a baby and whether or not his sperm count is good enough. But they're not like seeing a counselor, or divorce isn't imminent. And so many of these wacky comedies will throw some wrench into the romance. Now, they do that a little bit with some of the ancillary game night characters where one couple is arguing about she might have slept with a celebrity and the other guy just can't settle on the right woman. But again, it doesn't devolve down into relationship cliches the way a comedy does. So those two are great. This is shot like a $200 million blockbuster.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's one of the few comedies I've ever seen that said, we're going to shoot this like an action film. Huh. And it's going to be a funny movie. But, I mean, the film looks better. It looks like a Fast and Furious movie in the way that it's shot. And then they use the tilt shift effect for establishing shots in a way that makes the car driving down the road look like a game piece on a game board.
Yeah.
Oh.
And there's so much care in this movie to stuff like that. From the opening credits to what's on screen and the closing credits. Mm-hmm. Things that are thrown out that you think are completely throwaway, that either turn into running jokes or come back again at the very end. Some of them not until the credits are rolling and you're looking at what's on screen at the end and you make a realization. It just feels like the movie was very well thought out and planned out. Whereas something like Office Christmas Party, they said, let's get all these funny people together, raucous party with lots of alcohol and a little cocaine. Funny's bound to happen. Here, they had the funny in place, and I think they went out and found the right people. Now, this is from the guys that wrote, they were some of the writers on Spider-Man Homecoming. Oh. They're also the guys that made the Horrible Bosses movies. And, you know, I guess people don't like the second one like me, but that's because they saw the first one first. Most people seem to like that first Horrible Bosses
I think that
movie.
you're talking about the producers of this movie were Horrible Bosses. The directors of this movie did Vacation, that Ed Helms.
Yes,
Vacation.
which is not great to anyone but Jeremy.
Right.
And I even knew enough, but every time I've talked about Vacation, I knew I might be on an island.
And sorry, they wrote Horrible Bosses too.
Okay, great. But, so there was a connection there.
Right.
This one, I don't feel like I'm on an island. Everybody on my Twitter feed that went to see it because of my recommendation has come back with thumbs up.
Nice.
So many of the jokes hit. That's what's hard with comedy is to make the jokes hit, right? Because it can be funny on the page, but it's not always going to be funny in person. Mm-hmm. Depending on staging, performances, all kinds of factors. And there are only a few moments here where I was like, doesn't quite reach what you're going for. But there were a lot of moments where it does, particularly Rachel McAdams and Jason Bateman in an alley.
Oh, yeah.
And then Jason Bateman in somebody else's home office. Those two scenes had me near in tears.
Yeah. Huh.
And maybe I just needed that. Maybe I needed it after Black Panther and Annihilation took me to these deep places. But I haven't seen a comedy in theaters that made me laugh that hard since maybe Tropic Thunder or Hangover.
That scene you're talking about when he's in somebody else's office, I had to pee terribly during that scene. But I stayed through it because I knew the way they set it up. Yeah. That I had to watch it and everything. And I luckily, like right after that, I was like, okay, perfect time right here. And everything. But yeah, I did like it. I wanted to love it, but I think some things didn't hit as much for me, but overall.
Good to see Rachel McAdams.
Yeah.
Getting back to, because I guess Mean Girls was her main comedic thing. She was in Wedding Crashers, but she wasn't really
and
funny.
The hot chick, but like, playing for 5 minutes in that movie.
Yeah. Well, and after that, True Detective, I mean, she was good in that role in season 2, but that was a dark role for her because she's like fucking everything that walks, and she's in a dark place mentally. It was nice to see. Oh yeah, she can be really bubbly and funny and charming, and
she was in Spotlight. There was a lot of like real dark things that were going on with roles she was taking, and so it was fun to see her very loose in this one. And you're right about the way it's shot. It looks amazing. There's a whole like one take shot in here that's incredible in this.
It's the kind of shot comedies don't normally take on.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Because if you watch your average Judd Apatow movie or whatever, he's like, well, let's put the camera here and we'll light it a certain way and my dialogue will do everything else.
Yep.
And so like it is fun. It's kind of like Edgar Wright-ish.
Yes. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of that, that humor to the way it's edited and shot, but still it looks slick as fuck.
Yeah.
And you're used to comedies being shot almost like TV.
Yeah.
And so it was a nice, refreshing change of pace. I recommend it. If you hate it, I'm sorry. It's only $10 and 2 hours of your life. You'll probably get over it eventually.
I don't think most people are going to hate it.
No.
It's like I said, I was hoping to laugh a little bit more in this movie, but I've always enjoyed these type of movies.
Yeah.
Midnight Madness, the It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, all these type of movies where, and those were mainly the thing that they're doing, scavenger hunts.
Oh yeah.
These are all scavenger hunt movies. This is essentially a scavenger hunt movie, although they sort of that's where I diverge a little bit. Like, I wish it had stayed that way, especially since they do a real joke riddle that's in there that's impossible to actually, like, unless there is an answer. I don't know, but they came up with this.
Fucking hilarious,
it was like,
though.
I'm dark by day and white by night, and I have 9 faces, and all this.
It goes on for there's like 12 lines. It's like literally impossible. But I think they only did that because they knew the scavenger hunt was going out the window pretty quick.
Right. So it was stuff like that was really funny and everything.
Look at this February, man. This February's been kicking ass.
I mean, like I said on Twitter, I can't remember the last time that I saw 3 movies at the theater that were in a row, all A's for me.
Yeah.
And it's obviously a streak that's going to end at some point, probably soon. But I'm cherishing it while I have it.
Yeah,
it's rare.
We don't have a movie ad in this episode, but on Mubi I watched a director that I've been meaning to see more of because I saw a couple of his movies in the 90s. This Louis Buñuel is a director that I've seen. I think I've seen Un Chien Andalou. That's the one that he's really known for. And I don't think I ever saw The Discreet Life of the Bourgeoisie, but that's one of his other ones that he's known for or whatever. But Mubi was doing this thing with Louis Buñuel, and they've got like 4 of his movies on there. And one of them is called That Obscure Object of Desire, and it was his last movie. It came out in 1977. This is such a fun movie.
Really?
Huh.
Oh, it's so fun. It starts off with this guy, Fernando Rey, who's in Chinatown. He's the main bad guy in Chinatown.
Oh, yeah.
Who is breaking up, or he's moving on, you think, from his girlfriend. And he's on, and all around him there in Paris, there's terrorism all over the place. And Louis Buñuel is obviously making a sort of a comment on terrorism and our reaction to terrorism and stuff like that. But it's in the fringes. It's not like you're supposed to be like, I'm worried about this terrorism all the time or anything. But he gets diverted on a trip, and he has to get on a train, and he takes an action on this train that leads all the people in his passenger car to ask him, why did you do that? And I don't know if I want to tell people because I had no idea this was coming up. It's such an out of nowhere action that if you ever run across this movie, I want you to be surprised by it. But they ask him why he does this. So he tells this story about this woman he met. Now he's way older, and this girl's supposed to be 18 or whatever. And he meets her, and he falls in love with her. The interesting thing about this character is that she's played by 2 different actresses throughout the movie. And they have this one actress for certain scenes, and then like he'll get into a car with somebody and out comes another actress or whatever. And I was reading some reviews afterwards, and some people were like, oh, I thought it was going to be something where these 2 women were con women or whatever, and they were conning him, and they, they don't look anything alike. It's not like he could confuse one or the other. It's just the way Louis Buñuel does this is that he casts 2 different women, and he wants to use one woman for certain scenes, and he wants to use another woman for other type of scenes. All the way through this movie, though, he's trying to fuck her. And she will not let him do it. Like it starts off basically like they're just kind of friends, and he's trying to be a sugar daddy almost, and all this other type of stuff. And she keeps teasing him like, oh yeah, we're going to do this. Just come by tomorrow or whatever. And like every time he comes by, she's got some other excuse and everything. And it keeps going through all this. And it's like his whole life is sort of dedicated to trying to have sex with this girl. And she keeps on like disappointing him, and then finding a way to get him interested and hooked again. And it's so interesting. I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to go too deeply into it because I feel like if you do run across this movie, you'll want to sort of come up with a lot of the interpretations and stuff on your own. It's not exactly like a real abstract movie, but there are abstract things in it that you will be forced to sort of give your sort of, you have to weigh in on what you think about it and everything. Because that terrorism stuff is ridiculous in the movie. It's all around. It's never a part of the plot, but it's always around him and everything. And these groups that they keep naming in the movie and everything are like the Order of the Infant Jesus or something like that. He obviously has a thing about religion in this movie that he keeps bringing a point about on this too. And so it's a really interesting movie. That Obscure Object of Desire, if you can find it, and especially if you're on Mubi, and this is not an ad, but I guess it sort of serves as one.
I'm totally going to watch it.
Definitely watch it. And I'm going to try to watch his other ones that are currently on there too, because I feel like he's just one of those type of guys. I haven't been able to watch a lot of his movies. I haven't had access to them.
There's some Godard stuff on there.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
Yes, there is.
French cinema, baby.
Yeah, man.
I'm all in.
Totally.
Time to warn?
Yes.
I'm going to go with a warn from a previous podcast a week or two ago that I didn't get to. And this is a little movie this podcast has talked about called The House.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever gotten around to watching?
Yep.
Okay. This is a movie that not just Chris. It looked pretty funny to me, too, when the trailers came out. Yep. Chris was pretty pumped about it. And then on the podcast, looked it up and realized it was getting shitty reviews and was probably a very terrible movie. Now, that's the frame of mind I'm in watching this. So I did laugh more than I expected.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest laugh in the movie, I'm going to go ahead and spoil this, is near the end when someone is handcuffed to another someone. And Will Ferrell goes to use an axe to chop the chain of the handcuffs, but hits the bad guy on the wrist and chops off his hand. And it's unexpected, and I blurted out some laughter. But even reflecting on that, I'm like, I've seen that before.
Yeah, and it was in the trailer.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. But not just that literal one. I've seen that gag before.
Yeah. It was done in 4 rooms. The Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, but like 20 years ago.
Hannibal.
Yeah, Hannibal.
And so
this is really going to hurt.
Biggest laugh for me is a tired joke I've seen done better. And that tells you a lot.
Well, and the thing about that made it fun in the house is the Jason Mantzoukas reaction afterwards. The way in the trailer it's done is great, but in the movie, when it gets to his reaction, it's not nearly as impactful. It doesn't come up timing wise.
Right.
It's not as funny.
Right.
But in the trailer, it's like that happens, the guy's hand gets cut off, and then he's like, let that be a warning to all the rest of you. As a person who plays a lot of poker and everything, I wasn't looking for some like hard ass Rounders movie or a Rounders comedy or anything like that. But I was looking forward to this being more about Will Ferrell and Amy Poehler becoming like real like casino barons in this, and that they were going to change in a certain way. They kind of do, I guess. But I felt like it could have been a great send up of like Casino and all that.
Yeah.
If they had really sort of looked back at what they had on this, because obviously it would be patently ridiculous for him to feel like he's a big fish at all,
right?
Running this thing out of his house.
Yeah.
And I just felt like that would have been a really funny thing to look at more of the characters, those main characters, then look at all these other like things that they're doing in the movie and everything. So like, I think that's where they dropped the ball, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I would probably watch Office Christmas Party again before I watch this again.
Really?
Yeah.
And Office Christmas Party, I'm talking about it way too much because it's not good at all. But it has better laughs and at least a few moments of funny that I haven't seen before.
Is this another one where they just expect funny people to be funny and carry the movie?
It kind of is. It kind of is. Or the between the combination of the two leads and the premise, we've got all we need.
Yeah.
We've got all we need. We don't need to script. The day before, we'll jot some stuff down. We got a loose framework. That's probably how they approach
Where is Will Ferrell going, man? Because he's doing Daddy's Home 2, The House. What has he come out with recently? That his SNL episode was awesome,
Mm-hmm.
but
yeah, he hasn't had a movie exactly. Even Anchorman 2 was not good.
No.
So like, yeah, I mean, it's been a while since he's had that real impactful comedy.
He needs to go back and start doing Everything Must Go and Stranger Than Fiction.
I would love to see that Will Ferrell
but,
again.
you know, realize he also had a period of time there after Anchorman and all that was bad too.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Blades of Glory, and which I kind of like.
Semi-pro.
I kind of like that too.
Yeah. I guess there was always something in those movies that you could hold on to, but he had a bad streak there in the middle, and then did he ever really come back with anything though?
I guess Everything Must Go in terms of time period wise. I don't think it's great, but it's good. And then he did that. When did he do that? Like telenovela?
Casa de Mi Padre.
Yeah, that was like 5 years ago.
And he also did that one. It was a drama, wasn't it? Like it was a Lifetime. It was a Lifetime movie he did with Kristen Wiig,
where they played it straight.
Yeah. It was like a bad adoption
Yeah,
or something like that.
that.
It was like one of those type of movies.
He did Get Hard. He's got the Lego movie, but
Get Hard's bad.
Yeah.
Anchorman 2, the Lego movie, Get Hard, A Deadly Adoption, I think is what you're talking
deadly
about.
Adoption.
Bad adoption.
Yeah.
Then he did Daddy's Home, Zoolander 2, which wasn't good, The House, Daddy's Home 2. And he's kind of...
What's coming up?
The 100-year-old man who climbed out the window and disappeared.
Well, it's an interesting title that they'll probably change.
And he's doing that Holmes and Watson thing, that Sherlock Holmes thing with
who's his co-stars? John C. Reilly.
Yeah,
that could be really fun.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe Step Brothers or Talladega Nights or something might have been in the last movies.
Yeah.
And he did those sort of in the same time period as Blades of Glory and Semi-Pro and all that. My warning, although I don't think very many people, maybe a few people will go back. You know, there's a new Tomb Raider with Alicia Vikander coming out in March, and Jeremy was talking about this great string of movies that are coming out. Probably end with that, and Death Wish, and went back and watched these Angelina Jolie Tomb Raiders that came out. I actually did not see them.
Neither one?
No, the 2001 one came in the period of time that I was not working at a movie theater. And the 2003 one I probably didn't watch because I didn't see the first one, and what's the point?
Well, you would have been lost.
I would have been totally lost. Well, it was funny. I did that with XXX State of the Union. I had not seen the original XXX.
Oh, geez.
Because that also came out in that time period that I wasn't working. And then XXX State of the Union, I watched that one. That was a 2005 movie because I was in the middle of watching all the 2005 movies.
It's so shitty.
Yeah, it's a terrible.
Which one of the Tomb Raiders is Daniel Craig in?
That's the first one.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and say that one of my favorite outtakes of all time is going to involve him in this Tomb Raider Sins video that we'll be coming out with. But I went back and watched these, and that Tomb Raider, that first one, came out in 2001, and I am seeing so many fingerprints of what 2001 action movies are like in that movie. You know, it's sometimes hard for us to figure out what is the thing that makes that decade the decade that it is. You can look at action movies made back then. They all have this weird they like to do lots of close-ups and like weird editing, and we're getting weird. It's Tomb Raider and XXX and the Fast and the Furious and all these movies that came out back then have this sort of like loose, like the cutting is all messed up. In Cradle of Life, it starts off with a wedding on top of a mountain, and then suddenly an earthquake hits, and there's like rocks falling in the water.
Nice.
And you think, okay, then we're supposed to be worried about the people who are on this mountain, and we're supposed to be worried about the earthquake that has occurred. And like in the middle of this earthquake, it's like Tomb Raider, Cradle of Life, and it never goes back to them again.
Are you serious?
Never goes back to them again. Just as just a way to open up the bullshit movie.
That's awesome.
And so you see a lot of this stuff, and they like to put in that like that new metal, music that was going on back then. Like every movie has this type of thing in it and everything. And yeah, man, if you're thinking about watching Tomb Raider and the Tomb Raider Cradle of Life in anticipation of the Alicia Vikander Tomb Raider, I'm going to warn you against that.
Did you ever play the game?
I did. I played the first one.
That game is infuriating.
Yes, it is. It's one of the.
Give me an action game or give me a puzzle game, but don't give me both at once.
It's one of the hardest games I've ever played. I believe it was PlayStation that I played that first one on. And what Jeremy is talking about, there was there's one part in there where you have to jump on a platform just so. And if you don't get on it, you fall all the way fucking back down.
Yeah, I remember.
And it's and I mean, you spend hours doing this. I'm not like some video game expert here, but damn. And you'd like, oh, I finally got it. And then something else went, some bat would come by and hit you. And you're falling all the way back down again. And it's,
You imagine the amount of cursing that Chris was hurling at his TV when this was going on.
Well, I played that game from a few years ago called The Last of Us. It's very much the same style of game in that the action and the puzzles don't separate themselves. Mm-hmm. And I made a drunk gameplay video of The Last of Us, and I spent an hour trying to figure out how to get up on this ladder, only to figure out at the very end I had to go over here, and I could push that dumpster that looked like it was not something I could touch, and I had to push the dumpster over here, and then I could get on the ladder, and the action started again. I'm like, well, fucking tell me! Jesus Christ! I'm trying to jump on top of this ladder, and all I had to do was push something over there. Oh, God.
By the way, Cracked has somebody writes some really good video game articles on Cracked. Find those ones that talk about most impossible things to do in video games ever or whatever, and he'll have a series of 6 things. And there are so many where the puzzle is in no way obvious.
Yeah.
There's no way you could possibly come up with this on your own, unless I guess you're just spending 24 hours on it and you're just I'll just try any old shit.
Yeah.
And you finally get it. It's the way it was for me playing Zork as a kid.
Oh.
Zork had this maze that you'd go through, and they sort of encourage you to map that maze. And remember, it's a text game.
Right.
So you're saying north, and it would be all right, and it says you're in a maze. There are many passages throughout. And you'd be okay, so I went north here. All right, I'll go east now. And then it's you can't go that way. And it doesn't tell you can't go that way until you try it.
You try it.
And then so a few years ago, I downloaded the whatever, the shareware, whatever you want to call it. And I was you know what? I'm tired of this. I just give me a walkthrough. I just want to see how this game ends and whatever. So you get through the maze, and the maze is at one point it's okay, so go north, north, east, north, north, then go up. Now, here's where it gets weird. Go down. And you're supposed to know that you can go up and then down, and then you're not in the same place. And how did anybody solve this game?
Seriously.
How did anybody do it? They must have spent their entire lives coming up with the answer to this maze. Anyway.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we had a Zork reference.
We did.
Yeah. Wow. You want to do a couple of questions?
Yeah, man.
Question. I got something to say. I want the truth. I am listening.
If you could turn any live-action movie into an animated movie, what movie would you choose, and what style of animation would you want it to be? This listener says their answer would be Pulp Fiction as a 2D Disney-style animation.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
I got to say, unexpectedly, I fucking love this question.
Oh, yeah?
And I probably had 5 answers that I loved before I came up with my answer that I believe to be the best answer possible. So I'll let you guys go first so that I don't steal your thunder.
So I was thinking for a bit there, and I was some movies their live action form they're just way too rad to make into animated movies, like T2 or The Matrix or something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess they've in some way they have animated those stories in other forms, but not the movies that I'm talking about. But I ended up on Ender's Game for this because I feel like the movie they made could have been a lot better if I guess the studio believed in it more, because there's something about that movie that feels like they just didn't believe in it or whatever, and they didn't allow that to be like it should have been a good 2 hours and 10-minute movie or something like that, because there should have been a little bit more of the training sequences and stuff that are in the book. And I'm not a big, like, you got to film everything in the book, but the way it's in the movie, it comes off a little like slipshod, because they have like a couple of training sequences and suddenly he's a fucking master by the end of it. So it doesn't make much sense. So I'm going to end up on that. I did for a moment briefly think, it's like, how dirty would Basic Instinct be as an animated film?
In the style of Heavy Metal?
Yeah, it would be dirtier than Heavy Metal,
sure,
I think.
Sure.
Like, even though Heavy Metal's got nudity and sex in it and everything like that, go out and see it, kids. It's got nudity and sex. You think about some of the scenes and the way they're shot in Basic Instinct. Imagine those animated. That's like, there's a little extra, like, dirtiness to that.
No, I wonder, after Heavy Metal and, like, what was it, Fritz the Cat or something like that had, it was like raunchy animation there for a while in the 80s and 90s. And it feels like besides something like Sausage Party, we're not really getting that much anymore. I'm sure there's a lot of it in anime, but we don't get it in the States very often.
I think there's a part of the population that is glad that isn't a regular thing, because cartoons generally are considered children's entertainment. And the fact that I think it was even on Ted, they had to give a warning and say, this is not for kids. Do not bring your kid into this.
Yeah. The same thing with Sausage Party.
Yeah, don't like come complain to us later that you thought it was for kids. But that's what they have to go through in order to do this. So, if there is an animated movie that comes out with all this type of stuff, they're going to have to like really make sure that kids don't watch it and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's why they kind of died out.
Yeah. I always think that absurd comedies could be even absurder, like with animation. Yeah. So things with that have visual gags, like Blazing Saddles. For whatever reason, Blazing Saddles paired with like did you guys ever see the TV Funhouse stuff on SNL?
Oh, yeah.
Where they would fun with audio or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
It's Robert Smigel and somebody else that does the animation. But I could see something like Blazing Saddles, or like this broad comedy in that sort of animation, like screwball type of, puffs of smoke or as they run somewhere this way or that way. You could even do something like Anchorman animated and make it even crazier. So yeah, that's what I'd like to see.
That's nice. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. So mine is I want Hot Fuzz.
Yeah.
In the style of Aardman's Wallace and Gromit animation.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, there's a couple reasons. Both of these franchises get British humor dead on. And I also think there's a sensibility there, a comic kinship in between Edgar Wright and Nick Park. Is it Nick Park at Aardman?
Yeah.
I think it's Nick Park's the guy that runs that. And I just think the gags from Hot Fuzz, done in the gag style of the claymation Wallace and Gromit action scenes,
and
would be balls out awesome.
It would be awesome. By the way, I'm going to go ahead and disclaimer this, because I know somebody out there is going to be like, you realize those assholes are British, right? That's why they get the British comedy right, blah, blah, blah.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So anyway, there's a fucking disclaimer.
But there's something, British humor has always been like pretty tough to really crack for Americans, for most of us. We can think it's funny, but like describing it and understanding it, it's two different things. But I can say with authority, I know both of those people get British humor right in a way that British people can appreciate and non-British people can appreciate. I just love the idea, because Hot Fuzz is having so much fun, especially with the visuals and all the shit in the background. And you think of the attention to detail from Wallace and Gromit stuff. I just think it's a perfect marriage.
It's the rural environment too.
Yeah.
And can you imagine the end of Timothy Dalton's character?
Yeah,
in that style of animation.
I was thinking about the guy who gets the church spire like into the reporter.
Oh, that's right. I was thinking about when Dalton like falls on that model mansion thing.
Oh, yeah.
There's a couple of church impalings in this movie.
I forgot. Yeah.
No, yeah.
Maybe your first question from Taiwan. I believe it is.
Probably.
The question is this: what moment in a movie where a character makes an inexplicably stupid decision, and no matter how many times you watch the movie, it always blows your mind? This was inspired by watching The Great Escape recently, where two characters are so close to freedom by posing as Germans, but when boarding a bus, a German officer catches them off guard by saying good luck to them, and one of them responds in English. Mm-hmm. So what do you guys think?
Oh, that's a good question. I like it a lot. The first thing that came to my mind was Kirk and Wrath of Khan when they first approach the Reliant, which is now manned by Khan and his crew, but Kirk doesn't know it. Mm-hmm. And they're not getting any radio signals from Reliant. And Kirk even says, this is damn peculiar. And he even has that Vulcan trainee girl, Kirstie Alley, who reminds him about the Starfleet regulation. If you can't establish communications, you should put up your shields. And she gets scolded for reminding Kirk what to do. And then people die because they get fired on because he didn't put his shields up when he should have. It's one of the stupidest. I mean, Kirk is, in most cases, rightfully praised for being a smart character, at least a street smart character who finds clever ways out of situations. But this is just a colossally stupid move. I feel like you could have written it better so that they could have been surprise attacked in a way that didn't make Kirk look like a bonehead. Mm-hmm. Because it's not, he even says afterwards casually, because they're like, you did it, sir. And he's like, I did nothing except get cut with our britches down. And I'm like, yeah, and all the dead people down below in engineering.
Hey, yada, yada, a lot of people deaths.
Yeah, make your jokes, Kirk. The other one I thought of I wanted to mention is in Edge of 17 when Haley Steinfeld's character sends that X-rated text to the guy she has a crush on. Mm-hmm. Everything about that moment doesn't make any sense to me. It's stupid that she would type it out on her phone like that and get more than 2 words before realizing this is a bad idea. It's stupid that a teenager doesn't know her phone well enough that she can accidentally hit send after she's typed all this shit about I want to blow you or whatever. Mm-hmm. That whole moment is just stupid. And I realize emotional teenagers do stuff. I'm just saying, get a journal, paper and pen, and write down all your sexual thoughts about the crush guy. Absolutely no risk you're ever going to accidentally send that shit.
You know what's weird about that? Isn't she kind of like surprised when he makes a move on her during their date? Like it seems like she's like, oh, that was unexpected. When she sent him, not that I'm saying that she.
No, I don't think she's surprised he makes a move. I think she realizes in the moment she doesn't want that, and then is surprised that he is less than cooperative.
Okay, well that makes more sense. For whatever reason,
I think they start kissing like completely willingly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then it's when he tries to like climb on top of her and stuff that she starts to realize. And I think that's totally fair.
Yeah.
She should have expected him to expect something, and he should back off when she changes her mind.
Yeah. It's one thing to have those type of fantasies, but it's another thing to be actually in the moment and whether or not you really want to go through with it once it gets to that point.
It's one thing to want to sleep with Maura Tierney.
That's right. That's right.
It's another thing to actually go through with it when you find yourself in a scenario where that would be possible.
Maybe Angela Lansbury would be available.
Liar, Maura Tierney, man. There's nothing she does in there that's sexy. But man, do I love her in that movie. I love
she sure can slice a birthday cake.
She can. She
does. They start making out like as soon as the lights go off during that last birthday scene. Oh, yeah. Right? It's like they can't wait until after the party.
I don't know.
To get it on.
Movie's got to tell you that they're back together somehow. All right, so the 2 dudes in Star Wars on the Death Star that don't shoot the escape pod when it goes down. Wait a minute. Hold your fire. There's no life forms on board. Okay, I guess we are stockpiling ammunition and everything.
Yeah, they're lasers.
They're not the Death Star, but it's on the big ship at the beginning and everything. Yeah. And like, it just never has made sense. I think even as a kid, I was like, so what? Are you like rationing it or something? Or
and they're looking for plans. They're looking for information.
It just happens to be launching
a life form.
Right. I mean, is back home, are there like, women in the factories, making bullets and stuff?
Yeah.
And they just, they're like trying to like make sure that we can't use metal in all the normal things we used to. We got to use those for bullets. So don't shoot anything if you don't think there's life forms on it. Another one that I thought of was Matthew Modine in The Dark Knight Rises.
Oh.
When they're chasing after Bane and there's that big Wall Street heist and everything, and he's like, hey, I can go after Batman instead.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck you, dude. What the fuck is this all about?
Doesn't he give a rationalization like this is my only chance to get Batman or something? It doesn't make it any...
It's pride. This is my chance to do what Jim Gordon never could do. I've seen this movie too many times. But the movie even chastises him because Joseph Gordon-Levitt's like, sir, what about the armed robbers?
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the thing that kills me is like, I understand in this world that somebody might be like that, but seriously, like you think you're going to get Batman during the middle of all this? Like, can we focus on the criminals first?
Yeah, but not to mention nobody's ever gotten Batman.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, this movie actually has a few moments like this because the decision to send every able-bodied cop down into the sewers is one of the most colossally dumb things ever committed to film.
So let's talk about sneakers again.
Okay.
We'll do a double sneaker take this episode. Mm-hmm. Man, the whole end of the movie doesn't happen if Mary McDonnell doesn't say, this is the last time I go on a computer date.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You know?
You're right.
And yes, it's kind of, silly that Ben Kingsley would make that connection. Hey, computer paired him with her? No, not a chance. And then he takes that next leap to see, it's got to be Martin. And then he goes into his office, and then he finds this whole thing, and it sets up the whole rest of the movie. But if she
why is it so hot in here?
Why is it so hot in here? If she doesn't say anything right there, they got
away with it.
They've got it. He's up in the thing. He's about to come out. She goes out. Everybody goes home. There's a chance that they may actually get there back to the home base before the NSA shows up, unless James Earl Jones and his crew is already there.
I will say that, yes, as you described it there, that it's weird that he makes all this leap, that Martin is behind it and all this other type of stuff. However, I think in his brain, he's thinking, well, then why was the card stolen and why was it used to get into these rooms and all that? Because you see that throughout the thing. The Werner Brandis is used on these rooms, and he's like, wait a minute. Like the card is, why was that being used? And
because she actually puts it back into his wallet, right?
Yeah. So I think that might have been part of it and everything. But you're right. I think that is my least favorite part of that movie.
All right,
is her saying that.
I'm going to defend it.
All right.
I feel like the movie is saying she and Martin used to date. It's definitely saying that. But I feel like it's saying back in the day, when he was doing more criminal type behaviors and pranks and dabbling in the CIA, because there's history there with the Russian guy, the diplomat, and he remembers them as a couple, right? And when he goes to her, the first time you see her in sneakers, she's like, no, I don't want anything to do with your boys club, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, I need you to come explain. She's not been in this life for a while. She's a piano teacher. She got out of it.
Yeah.
And he pulls her into this last heist. She's rusty. She's trying to ad-lib to keep the character going right there at the end, but she's out of practice.
Yeah.
So a fine-tuned her would have known to say something like, that's the last blind date I ever go on. And she'd have been out of there, but she's not used to being undercover.
Well, I know. I just don't know why she says anything there.
I don't know. I just want to defend the movie. I agree with you. I think it's a dumb thing that she says that. She doesn't have to say anything. That she even feels the need to ad-lib something there is probably the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, later on when Cosmo goes into his office and everything, he has to announce, why is it so hot in here?
Yeah, of course. Of course. He's in that profile.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it for this episode. Keep going to the SinCast presented by Cinemasins Facebook page. Keep going to SoundCloud. Keep going to Reddit. Go and a lot of places that you can tell us what you thought
How's
about this
the Reddit
episode.
Game going these days? I haven't checked that recently.
Good. It's been a while since somebody's posted a video hating on us.
Nice.
That's sort of how I measure how the Reddit thing is going these days.
Do you think they finally just don't care?
Well, the last several people that have posted there have been told by the regulars, why do people keep posting this stuff here? We don't like all those get downvoted to oblivion. So I think they've just learned. We'll post it somewhere. Go post it to our movies, which is 100 times bigger a sub, and they hate us already. So you're preaching to the choir in there.
That's right. But that'll do it for this week. It's Chris Atkins and Jeremy Scott and Barrett Sher. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And and be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
You want to know how weird cultures are and different cultures are?
Mm-hmm.
I just read an article today about a movie that opened this weekend in China, and it's the number 3 opening in all time in China.
Mm-hmm.
It's a movie called Detective Chinatown 2.
Oh, that's the American or the English version?
I suppose, yes. I'm sure it's not the title in China. That's the translation. But it's a sequel to Detective Chinatown 1.
Right.
And it's these 2 cops. It's kind of like, it looks like Rush Hour. They're in New York City. It was shot all in New York City.
Oh, really?
Made almost $500 million in China. You ever heard of this?
No.
That's my point.
Wow. Interesting.
What entertains them, what entertains us, ain't always the same thing.
I
wonder if it's any good.
I don't know.
Run across that title at some point for some reason, probably that, but I didn't read whatever it was. I saw,
Chinatown.
Somebody's just going to go ahead and glom off the Chinatown, huh? And just make a movie called that, huh?
Mongolia, 18.
18 in Mongolia, huh?
And which is less than Kazakhstan, which is 21. Uzbekistan, 1.
One in Uzbekistan.
Iran, 1.
You see now, when it gets to the 1, I wonder if it's on purpose. like
maybe it was an accident.
Yeah.
Botswana is 2.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that has to be on purpose.
Yeah, for sure. Once it gets past 1,
it's like a couple where it's like, honey, you need to listen to this.
Yeah. Download it on your phone. You can't have mine.
I've been watching a lot of old shit. Like, watched Vanilla Sky again last night.
Oh, yeah, I need to see that again.
Oh, talk about answering questions. Vanilla Sky wraps up a lot more neatly than I remember.
I was watching part of that the other day.
Yeah, I watched it last night, and it basically comes out and tells you exactly what's going on.
Kurt Russell tells you the whole thing.
Yeah, and then
tech support.
By the way, that use of good vibrations is like one of my favorite things ever.
By the way, that's one of my favorite outtakes ever. Was when we did when Captain America wakes up at the end of Captain America and he's running through the building and we did the Vanilla Sky thing where he's like, it's a nightmare, and then he goes out into New York and the spinning's around and it's got I'm thinking of good vibration.
That's a good movie. I also saw Mission Impossible 2.
Oh, what the fuck?
Why?
Because it was on Stars, and I was like, "Is this really as bad as I remember?" It is worse than I remember.
Random.
It's terrible.
I was, Oh my god, when we sinned that movie, I remember it not being good. But the sin part of it, I was like, Jesus, how did this go wrong?
Oh my god!
The first Mission Impossible's great, and then the second one. I mean, I don't know if I want to blame John Woo or just American studios or what, but.
It's like Woo times
I blame
2.
DeGray Scott.
Yeah, DeGray Scott. Fuck that guy.
Yeah, he's like holding his own against Ethan in the last fight. And
isn't
like
Anthony Hopkins in that movie too?
Yeah. They don't call it Mission Hard, Mr. Hunt.
Did you go to KFC?
Yeah.
Bastard.
Oh, no.
I love me some KFC.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man. Also watched Major League.
Oh,
and
nice.
I saw that part where Tom Berenger brings in the bucket of KFC
to
Dennis Haysbert because he wanted to sacrifice a live chicken.
Yeah.
He's like, a whole chicken, just as promised.
Yeah. And he looks at it like.
Anyway, yeah, I hate myself every time I go to KFC.
Oh, no. Don't.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined as always by the voice of Cinemasins, Jeremy Scott. And from Music Video Sins, Barrett Sher.
Flavin.
By the way,
that was like the worst introduction ever.
By the way, did I also talk over you on that intro? Is it going to be like one of these things where we're going to hear your voice right at the beginning and I'm going to be like, welcome to the SinCast?
I think I can get it, but why don't we do it again just in case?
Yeah. Just, because especially since you don't like your intro and everything.
All right, I'll come up with something different.
Do you ever think about these things ahead of time?
Not usually. When he starts talking, I usually go, what should I do?
And yes, Hello World indeed.
That's what you came up with?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking about the map.
I guess it's better than Flava.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. The song from Beverly Hills Cop, Shakedown.
Oh yeah.
Who did that? It was somebody weird. It was like Joe Cocker or something like that.
Oh, I think you're right.
Sorry. Shakedown, isn't that the thing?
Shakedown, breakdown, everybody's gonna get busted.
Okay.
Or whatever.
If it's Joe Cocker, I'm like, oh, Bob Seger.
Ah.
They're essentially the same person, though.
They are.